Hi, and welcome to this session of training on pastoring in the local church. This is part of a series of videos that have been produced to give you some basic information facilitating conversations between you and your mentor. We'll be spending this time together talking about some of the basic things you will encounter during your first years as a licensed local pastor or as you step in to serve as a DSA. We know not all things will apply to everyone who is watching this video, so please bear with us. I'm Reverend Carol Blair Bouse, an ordained elder here in the Michigan Conference. We're going to spend this time looking at the topic of administration. So let's start with a word of prayer to invite God into our midst today. Gracious and holy God, thank you for the call you have placed upon our lives to serve your church. Guide our time together this day that we might feel your presence and know your leading as we travel this path together. Amen. Today we're going to address the basic committees of the church conference, and year-end reports, single board governance, church finances, and our connection, including brief understandings of ministry shares, your relationship with the district superintendent, and the district committee on ordained ministry. Together, let's refresh our memory. The mission of the United Methodist Church is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. The purpose of the local church is to reach out and receive with joy all who will respond to the good news of Jesus Christ, provide opportunities for people of all ages to grow in their relationship with God through Christ, and to learn to respond with justice and mercy in this world. So if this is our mission and our purpose, how do we get organized? So the church is organized by calling of our annual Church or Charge Conference. In Michigan, we typically have an annual church conference to organize ourselves for another year. Now, this is open to all members of the congregation and is led by the district superintendent or their designated elder, someone like myself. Now, occasionally, a charge conference will be called, such as in 2020 during this COVID-19 pandemic. The charge conference is the elected members of the church council meeting on behalf of the entire congregation. But either way, a church or a charge conference, at this annual fall meeting, the pastoral salary is approved, leadership is elected, lay speakers endorsed, and reports received. Now, other business can include candidates for ministry, endowment changes, and large building projects approved. A special meetings can be held if needed. No matter if scheduled or special request, you must have 10 days notice with 2 public notifications given. So what do we need to do before we can have this annual meeting? Now, in the late spring or summer, you will have your annual supervisory meeting with your district superintendent. It may be in an individual setting or in a group setting. You'll need to have completed your annual self-evaluation, and it needs to be reviewed with your district superintendent, and it's asked to be in 14 days before this meeting to give him or her time to review it. Throughout the summer, you should be working with your Pastor Parish Relations Committee or your PPRC to complete their review of you, and that review is to be shared and compared with your self-evaluation to create a plan of improvement for the coming year. Before the PPRC meets with the district superintendent, they have submitted their completed review and improvement plan along with their salary recommendation. There are also forms to be completed by the trustees and finance committees, along with membership reports including possible removal lists, The church council needs to complete the profile of the congregation form. And all of these forms need to be completed with your support. You will be responsible to write the annual State of the Church report, and these reports, along with others such as UMW, if desired, should be put into a packet that's given away at these annual church or charge conference meeting. And once your church is set for another year by the church or charge conference, the work of your church committees begins. The main committee in your church is your church council. Now, some of your churches may be using a single board governance model. If your church does, please note that we'll be talking briefly about that after this conversation. A single board governance model has all the administrative functions of the church wrapped into one single committee, except for the Committee on Nominations and Lay Leadership. If you're working by a single board governance model, you still need to pay attention to all of this information. The church council is the body that is administrating committee of the congregation. It provides the structure for the planning, implementing, and reviewing of the programming for the congregation. They also are tasked with the creation of the mission and vision statements of the congregation and ensuring that all ministries of the congregation are aligned with those statements. It shall meet at least quarterly, and the basic membership includes the chairperson, the lay leader, and lay members to annual conference, the church treasurer, and the pastor. And then the chairperson or representatives of PPRC, finance and trustees, UMW, along with a young person, and representatives of UMYF. And it should oversee the work of nurture, outreach, and witness. And others can be included as desired by your local church. So let's take a few minutes to talk about the other administrative committees, the most important committees in your congregation: PPRC, Finance, Nominations, and Trustees. PPRC, Pastor Parish Relations Committee. It is designed to meet at least quarterly. This committee has a couple of major functions. First and foremost, it serves as a liaison between the congregation and the pastor. This is the committee you first met with upon meeting your congregation with the district superintendent. This committee's role is to support you as a pastor. It also has the role of evaluating you annually. As issues of conflict arises, this committee should address them. As the Committee on Ordained Ministry, we encourage you to use the model of Matthew 18 in resolving conflict. These committees meetings are strictly confidential, and you as the pastor shall be present at every meeting except where you voluntarily excuse yourself or where the committee is meeting with the district superintendent with your knowledge. In a church where there are any kind of paid staff, this committee is responsible for personnel issues, hiring, evaluating, and, if needed, firing. This committee is also responsible for nurturing all those who are discerning a call into ministry and those who are interested in the lay servant ministry. This committee shall have between 5 and 9 people. They shall all be professing members of the congregation, and then also the lay leader and the delegates to annual conference. The members should be divided into 3 classes, each for 3-year terms. And retiring members can succeed themselves only once. And only one person from any immediate family residing in the same household can serve on the committee at one time. And no staff person or members of a staff person's family or pastoral family can be members. Finance Committee. Now, the Finance Committee is an oversight committee only. Its membership is made up of a chairperson who's nominated by the Committee on Nominations, along with the chairpersons or representative of the following committees: the Church Council, PPRC, trustees, and then the pastor, lay leader, treasurer, and financial secretary. Now, there may be additional at-large members if your churches desire. Note the treasurer and the financial secretary should not be combined and held by one person, nor should the persons who hold these positions should not be immediate family members. Now, as I said before, the Finance Committee is an oversight committee. Its role is not to control the money. Its role is to inform and to guide the Church Council on the church's current financial state. This committee is also responsible for the creation of the church's budget to be presented to the Church Council for approval. This committee is also responsible for creating financial policies, overseeing the collection of, recording, and distribution of all monies received, and to oversee the annual audit and to facilitate the annual stewardship campaign. Please remember that stewardship is not simply about money. Every year, your church should be holding an annual time of stewardship. And this should not be the only time of the year that you preach or talk about stewardship. Traditionally, many churches have held this time in the fall, but more and more churches are moving this time to the late spring. Stewardship is the giving of our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. That is what we have committed to as members of the United Methodist Church. Too often we stop at stewardship simply being about money. It is way, way more than that. The Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is the legal entity of the congregation. This is often a point of confusion. This is the corporate board of the church, which is responsible for signing any legal documents. They are also charged with overseeing the maintenance of the church-owned properties, which includes both buildings and grounds, including the parsonage. They would also oversee any insurance issues, endowments, and memorial funds, unless separate committees have been named and set up. This committee shall be between 3 and 9, and only 2/3 of who need to be professing members, but all of which must be of legal age, which is 18. The members need to be in 3 classes, and retiring members may succeed themselves only once. The officers of the Board of Trustees are elected from the board themselves, not the Committee on Nominations. The parsonage is always a big question when it comes to the trustees and a new pastor. My best advice after 25 years plus of living in them is help them see it as your home as well as their parsonage. See it as a partnership. Find ways to get your congregation into the house. Welcome them in and your terms. Also, don't see the annual walkthrough as an invasion of your privacy, but see it as an opportunity to make things better. Your attitude will make all the difference. The more you can work with people to make the parsonage your home, the more successful you will be in helping others see it that way. It will help a lot. The Committee on Nominations and Leadership Development. This is a committee designed to work throughout the year to develop and train spiritual leaders, not just a few weeks before church conference. Now the committee shall not be more than 9 people, all of which should be professing members of the congregation, plus the pastor and the lay leader. Now the pastor, you are the chairperson, and the members should again be divided into 3 classes for 3-year terms. Each year, a new class shall come from the floor of church or charge conference. Hopefully, you have helped with the committee's recommendation. Now, there are other committees you may have in your congregation that oversee the ministries of nurture, outreach, and witness. But what does that mean? Nurture includes areas of education and spiritual formation, worship, and member care. Special attention should be to think about all ages in this area. Outreach, think in terms of local and larger communities, ministries of compassion and justice and advocacy, might be food pantries, campus ministries, and things like church and society. And then witness, developing and strengthening efforts to share our faith stories. Online communications have been huge this past year. Lay servant ministries, Walk to Emmaus. But there are other committees. They may have names like Mission or Worship Design, Prayer Shawl, Memorial Gardens. My best suggestion with all of these is that each have functions that are so different in each congregation. Listen by sitting down and understanding what each currently does and how it desires to function and how it connects to mission and ministry in the congregation. Now, you should have units of United Methodist men and United Methodist women. If you don't understand how you should relate with these organizations, don't hesitate to contact the district office, and they'll give you the current contact information for district presidents of each of these organizations. But take my advice, go to a meeting at least once or twice a year and let them know you care about them. It'll go a long way. Now, I said I would get to single board governance model after the individual committees, and we're there. The single board governance model is a way in which some churches have used to bring all their committees to the table at one time. A single board governance model is one in which the church council, the PPRC, the finance, and the trustees are held by the same 9 to 13 people. Now, you may say that this is just a small church structure. It's not. Many large churches are finding this to be a very effective and efficient way of doing the business of the church. The major difference between the single board governance model and our committee model is that it moves away from a reporting and day-to-day oversight model to an accountability leadership structure. The board sets guiding principles, things like budgets, policy, goals, and oversight, but it doesn't do day-to-day operations. Think about when you had 9 members of trustees and they used to take care of every building issue. But when you have a single board governance model, you're not going to do that. They might set the goal or the oversight, but as the role on the governance board, they don't take care of every building issue. They're going to create a task force to complete it. Same way with hiring, it would be the responsibility of the pastor or a small group or team. It's all a matter of how you're governing guidelines. If your church is working from a single board governance model, make sure you read and understand your governing guidelines and how they were established. Each are unique. Now, a major pitfall and challenge with the single board governance model is communication. Make sure you are constantly communicating with your whole congregation. Each church's governing guidelines will be slightly different, but here are some common pieces. A minimum of 9 people are on your board. They all should be professing members of the congregation, plus the pastor, the lay leader, and the lay delegate to your annual conference. The members should be divided into 3-year classes, each renewed for only 1 term. Now, a few simple things to think about when you're running a meeting. Make sure you've touched base with your chairperson before you have your meeting. Not having a plan and not knowing what's coming makes everyone uncomfortable. Intentionally plan out your agenda. Don't just use last month. Think about how conversations need to flow. A big one, consider moving the treasurer's report to the end of the meeting. When you start the meeting with your money report, especially in difficult financial times, it can cloud every other conversation. Have all reports submitted ahead of time with the expectation that people have read them. Don't spend time rehashing the past. Make sure you have a time of spiritual formation. Consider intentionally taking up to a quarter or even a third of your meeting in spiritual formation. This will help everyone understand how important it is to develop. There will be pushback, but don't stop. It's vital for the committee as a whole. And always review and critically evaluate events. Don't assume to do everything the same as you did last year or that you will remember. And spend time visioning every time you meet. Now, we're a connectional church. A few ways we acknowledge that is through our year-end reports. I know, no one likes year-end reports, but they're a part of life. Every year as a pastor, you are responsible for ensuring the completion of your year-end statistical report. To complete this, you will need your financial information, attendance, and membership. Your secretary, financial secretary, treasurer, and membership secretary will be most helpful in filling this out. And you shouldn't need to do it alone, but it's due at the end of January. Another way we think of our connection is our connectional giving, our ministry shares. As part of the United Methodist Church, each congregation is assigned a portion called a ministry share. Ministry shares are the money used to cover the costs of ministries for our districts, our conference, and our general church. These include such things as connectional ministries that supports conference staff for support and networking, programming, and new ministries nationally in Episcopal offices, advertising, and curriculum development internationally as the church develops around the globe. These are also connected as we engage ministries, advanced offerings, and our 6 special offerings. And on top of our ministry shares, we also portion our ministry benefit shares, which are our pension costs for each of our pastors. Finally, we're connectional in our relationship one with another. We're connected through our districts. You need to understand that your district superintendent has the role as both your pastor and as your supervisor. His or her role is both to be there for you, to support you in ministry, and to challenge you to grow in your role. Their role is not to be your adversary or your enemy, nor is the district committee on ordained ministry. We are here to help and support you. We will see you every year to encourage, support, and to help you grow. We hope this time has been helpful for you, and we hope that it will engage in fruitful conversation today and always. God bless.